All right, so yeah, we will get started here in just a few more minutes. And again, if you would like, go ahead and open up SPSS if you're able to through Apps Anywhere, or if you have it installed on your own computer, go ahead and open it up. It is always helpful to be playing around with the menu options, just getting a real feel for where everything is at, especially if you have not used SPSS in a while. Most of you have had a prior exposure to this, and some of this will be review, but it doesn't hurt to have a couple exposures to real technical stuff like this, but it is necessary. Okay, folks, I got 4 after here, so we'll go ahead and get the show on the road. On Moodle, I posted assignment 1 for the SPSS assignments. Now recall that you don't have to do all of them. You only have to do 5 out of those 7 assignments. For the students taking this course as a graduate course or graduate students, I would suggest that you just do all of the assignments. That way you will be really well prepared for doing your paper. Some of the assignments, like the one I'm having you all complete for Monday, that is a table that I'm going to ask the graduate students to put in their paper, a table just like that. And so you might as well go ahead and get started and do this first assignment. That's where we're at with this. So we'll be doing exercises like this using SPSS, and there'll be assignments associated with it. You do 5 out of the 7. Graduate students should probably just go ahead and do all of them. That way they're ready to do their paper. For you all, for the undergraduates, that is, though, you don't have to do a paper, but you will be tested on this in your 3rd exam. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at descriptive statistics and recodes. Now, some of this will be a refresher for you, something that you just did maybe a few weeks ago. For others, especially graduate students, may have not done this in a long time. So what we're going to do is talk about what is on that those exercises that you see on Moodle. Let me just share my screen with you real quick and show you. Let me move you all over here. Okay. So this is what I'd like us to work on today. So if you can get through all of this, you will have no problem constructing variables, doing any exam questions that I'm asking you to do where you have to recode things and do analyses in your paper or do them for the exams. And so this is just an overall way of getting you familiar with, one, some descriptive statistics, and then two, just the mechanics of SPSS and how we manipulate data, quantitative data, when we have it set up in SPSS data set like this. All right, so a couple things I just want to point out to people. If you are using SPSS through Apps Anywhere, what you want to do is have this AdHealth data set right here downloaded first to somewhere accessible like your desktop. And then when you are able to open SPSS through Apps Anywhere, you can just select File and then find that data file and then go ahead and open that up. And so that's what that's showing right there, that blue icon. That's the actual AdHealth data. Stands for the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent to Adult Health, AdHealth. And so we're using that data set for this class. The next link here is the AdHealth website. And so especially for students taking this as a graduate course, you should spend a few minutes taking a look at the AdHealth website to give you a good sense of how the survey was done. We'll be working with Wave 1, which is students, they were people in high school at the time, roughly between the ages of 15 to 18 years of age. And so most of them more like 15, 16 years old. And their parents were also surveyed, and they were asked everything under the sun. And so it's a very general social survey that also asks about things related to health or things related to crime and delinquency and things like that. But if you want to get a good sense of the whole sample design and everything, then take a look at the AdHealth website. And then there's the code book. This is the actual, well, not the actual survey, but this shows you in detail all the questions that were asked and a bunch of other, like how the skip patterns were worked in. So you don't have all the respondents seeing all the same questions. Like you can't be asking a bunch of boys about detailed questions about pregnancy. That wouldn't make any sense. So the code book shows you all the detail of the questions and how people were either included or excluded out of questions. So that's there. And so that's something else that especially graduate students may have to take a look at that when they are doing for a section of their paper. All right, so that's what's going on there. What I would like to do right now is go to the SPSS screen. All right, so I'm going to open up SPSS, and when you open up SPSS, oops, if for any reason, you folks on Zoom, if my screen freezes and just doesn't look right, yell at me, wave your hands about, whatever, let me know. But right now, what you should be seeing is an SPSS screen. It says variable view, that's highlighted down here in the lower left-hand corner. Okay, so typically when you open up an SPSS file, it will be on either this screen or it will be on where it says data view. All right, and so data view, this is the raw data for over 6,000 cases. These are high schoolers that were interviewed, and running across the top here in the columns are all the variables. These are all questions. Some of them are not questions, they're just variables, items that vary across cases. And so this is a basic Excel spreadsheet like structure of how the data is entered into this thing. For those of you who haven't done basic data entry with SPSS before, I would advise that you watch that first video that I have posted on Moodle website. That's from another class, but it shows you how to, you can, if you have just raw data, you can punch it into a blank SPSS spreadsheet and then start from scratch. But here, this is data that has already been input from a large national survey. And so that's what we're looking at here. So we have this data view, and we also have what is down here when we first started off. This was variable view. Now, variable view, what it's showing you in these rows here, this whole column, are the names of the variables in the AdHealth data set, which in and of themselves, they don't usually tell you much. See, they're just a bunch of letters and numbers. But then over here, a more important column is where it says label, and that gives you a better sense of what is actually being measured. And then finally over here, we have this column where it says values, and values tells you exactly how something was measured. So if we take a look at biosex. That's probably biological sex, what it's measuring. Here's a label, it tells us this, and this is how this thing was measured. If we click on this and click on this, what we can see is that male was coded as 1 and female was coded as 2. Okay, so you have a whole range of different variables here. Some of them are nominal, like gender. Some of them are ordinal. Some of them are interval. Some of them are ratio. We're going to look at a couple of variables to start off. We're going to look at drug use items, illegal drug use. And so these are items H1TO 32, 36, and 40, 42. So let me take a look. What you can do here is to get to these quickly, you can just highlight in this column and hit Control F, and this little box over here will pop up, and then we can go right down to our first item, H1TO 32, and go ahead and hit Find Next. And what all of these items are asking about is past day 30 use. And so this one is past day 30 use smoked pot. And we'll see how this thing was coded here in a second, but this one is for smoking pot. 36, this one is for cocaine use. And then 42 is for other illegal drugs. So just a catch-all of all other illegal drugs. So you got a marijuana indicator, past 30-day use, cocaine, and then any other drugs. Okay, so these are items. These are obviously high-risk behaviors, especially if a 15-year-old is doing them in excess. So 30-day use is a pretty reliable way to indicate whether or not somebody might be at risk of a substance use problem, because it's very recent in time, and so people can recall more quickly, as opposed to like in the last 12 months, how often have you done X? So past 30 days. So we'll take a look at these 3 past 30-day questions that deal with drug use. So I showed you already the name of the variable and the variable label. What we want to do is take usually the first step in analyzing any variable is we want to take a look at a frequency table. Okay, and so to do this, we want to go up to where it says Analyze, and go down to where it says Descriptive Statistics, and go over to where it says Frequencies. Okay, and so what we want to do over here is it's showing us on most of these screens that you go into, you will see on the left-hand side the list of all the variables in file order. Why don't we go ahead and hit and right-click and click Display Variable Names first, and then go ahead and click Sort Alphabetically. Okay, so then we can just, it's alphanumeric order, and so we can just go to our variables that we want to look for to look at the frequency distribution. So H1TO32 is the first one, and so we have to just scroll down to, oh, get to the D's. Oh, too far. Okay, here we are. Okay, so we want to have H1TO32, we want that one over there. That's the pot item. And we want the cocaine item, that's 36. And then we want the all other illegal drugs item, which is H1TO42. Okay, so what we're doing, we're moving these variables from the left-hand side to the right-hand side because we're telling the SPSS program that we want to run a frequency table on them. In addition to that, what we want to do is come over here and hit the box Statistics. Okay, so this is going to bring up where you request your main descriptive statistics for these 3 variables. So typically we want to have 3 measures of central tendency included, especially for a variable like past 30 days of use. We want to have the mean. We want to know what the average use is in the past 30 days, the median, and the mode. And so the mean is the average, the median is the middle score, and the mode is the most frequently given response. All right, so those are all measures of central tendency. So we also want to have measures of dispersion clicked. We want to know what the standard deviation is. So the standard deviation is the average difference from the average. So you always want to know, in addition to the average score, how different is the average case from the average, because no one has the average score. So you want to have that. And then you also want to know what the minimum and the maximum score is for the variable. So those are the things that you always want to click when you're doing descriptive statistics. So go ahead and hit continue. And go ahead and go to, before we go to OK, you can go to charts. Sometimes we're doing descriptive statistics, especially for a continuous variable like 30-day use. Request a histogram. And you can see how lopsided or normally distributed something is. If it's normally distributed, remember, it's supposed to look like a bell curve with a, it's a symmetrical sloping shape. But not all variables form that shape. And so we can just look at that visually really quickly by requesting a histogram, one of the most common types of quantitative charts that you'll see produced. And we hit OK. And let me stop sharing here and let me go to the output window. And it is printing my output. OK, so people at home should be able to see where it says a bunch of syntax up here at the top, getting file, showing me what I just asked for the computer to do. And right here, we have this first statistics box showing us all of our main descriptive stats for all of these variables. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that there is a significantly large proportion of these cases missing from questions about past 30-day drug use. That is likely because many of the people who are missing were skipped out of the question earlier because they said that they had never done any illegal drugs, and so they are not asked the follow-up questions. And so just keep that in mind. Whenever items have a huge number of missing cases, that probably means that a lot of respondents didn't even see the question, rather than a relatively small number of questions or small number of missing cases, which would suggest that they're missing at random. The valid number of cases, though, are how many people actually were given the 30-day questions and responded to them. So that's what valid in is, the number of people who gave a valid response. And then here are all your central tendency statistics, measures of dispersion, standard deviations, and minimum and maximum. So they all range from 0 to something. Okay, and so here is the actual frequency distribution table. And so this is for days, 30 days smoked pot. And so here you can see that it's a large number of people at the bottom of the scale, and then a very small number of people as we go down. So this is the actual, just to be clear, this is the actual counts of the number of people who said that they have done drugs before, but in the past 30 days that they have smoked pot exactly 0 times. All right, and then as we go further down the scale, this is just the number of times that people said that they've smoked pot in the past 30 days. You've got somebody that's probably being funny here and entering in 666 times. But when you get that high on the scale, or just that high on a regular day basis, the person may not be lying. This person may just have a lot of marijuana use going on. And so yeah, so here this is just the number of times people have smoked in the past 30 days. And here we have the ways that people are missing. So 65 refused, 4,705 are what's called legitimate skip. So it's legitimate skip, meaning that they probably said no to a prior question about any drug use, so they are skipped out. They never saw this question. And then 73 say they don't know, and 6 say it's not applicable. Okay, and so that's what that is. This is the percent. And here is the valid percent. So these two are going to be quite different because these two columns, because the percent here is out of the total sample, whereas the valid percent is only out of the people who gave the valid responses to this question. Okay, so that is why you get there's a big difference here between this percent which is out of the 6,405 people versus just the people who gave valid answers, the 1,655. Okay, so that's what the valid percent is. And then here, based on the valid percent, you have the cumulative percent. And so this is just 49.9 plus 11.8 equals 61.8. And so 61.8% of the sample that responded to this question have used pot in the past 30 days once or not at all. So that's what that's showing there in the cumulative percent column. It's saying what percent has done something X times, and that's just it's accumulating this. So at the bottom, of course, it equals 100%. Okay, and so if we look at the rest of these, they are coded in a similar way. The one 30 days use Coke is a little bit different, but you can see it's always going to print in the same kind of format, and we've got the other illegal drugs in the past 30 days. And again, you've got big missings for all of these, a big number of missing people. And so that may be a problem for us if we want to include all these people in our analyses that just didn't see the question. Here is a histogram. Here is it's showing you just how lopsided this distribution is. You've got almost everybody, even among people who have used drugs in the past, the amount of people saying that they use drugs in the past, frequently in the past 30 days, is really, really low. So it's just like, got a bunch of people here and then, basically no one here. It's not even visible on the chart. So you've got a real lopsided, what's called a right skew distribution, where a positively skewed distribution for all of these. And that's true for a lot of, especially drugs among younger kids, but just more extreme behavior generally. It's usually a very right skew distribution. Most people tend to avoid high risk behaviors, but then there's a small proportion of people who commit a lot of it or do a lot of it. All right, so if we want to do recodes with this, so that we want to get rid of all these missing cases, we can do that. Before I do that, though, I want to just, as a comparison to another item that we can look at that's not so lopsided in the distribution, because this is a really lopsided distribution. Let's analyze the respondent's weight measured in pounds as a comparison. So let's go to where it says Analyze and go to Descriptives and go to Frequencies. Okay, and it'll always have all the same stuff in these boxes that you put in previously, so we can put all this stuff back. Okay, and weight measured in pounds is the item H1GH60. H1GH60. H1GH60 is weight measured in pounds, and this will look more like something like a normally distributed item. One more thing I want to click here is show a normal curve on the histogram. So it's going to try to draw where a normal curve, a bell-shaped curve, should occur on this histogram. We'll see how closely this thing matches up. And so we're just doing the same thing here, but looking at weight. Okay, and so over here for weight, we have the average weight, median mode weight, standard deviation for weight, average difference from the average weight. And here is the whole range of weights. So there's not much difference here between percent and valid percent because there's not too many missings. Most people responded to this question. Okay, and here is our histogram for weight. See, it's a much more normally distributed variable because it's matching matching much more closely with that bell curve. And so in very large samples and samples of samples, everything starts looking like a normal curve. But some variables that are real extreme, when you measure them in one sample, it will be skewed, like these drug use items. Okay, So let's go back to taking care of these pesky missings. So we want to sometimes recode items so they don't have any missing items in them. We can maybe safely assume that the people who didn't answer this question really didn't use those drugs in the past 30 days. They probably would know if they did. So there's people that don't know, we'll just code them as 0. The missings, all missings will be coded as 0. Whenever you want to recode variables in SPSS, you usually you will want to go to recode into different variables. Okay, and so what this will do, it'll bring up this screen that has you, again, looking at the variables on the left-hand side. I want to go ahead and display variable names, sort alphabetically. And I want to go to the first of those delinquency items, H1TO32. Okay. And I'm going to call this, I need to call this something. When you put that over there, it's asking you to call it a new name because you're going to recode this. I'm going to call this pot 30 days no miss. So I'm just recalling it something, renaming it something that tells me that this is the pot 30 day question, but there's no missing cases. So pot 30 days no miss. You cannot have spaces when you're naming new variables. You can't have special characters, and you can't have too many letters. So you got to keep it pretty simple. Is there a question? No. Okay. All right. And all right. So yeah, and if anybody has a question at home, just please shout out. So we can go to hit change, and so we're gonna make this a new variable, old new values. Okay, so if you are system or user missing, if you're missing it all on this variable, then I want you to be a 0 for my new variable. So what that's going to do, all those people that were missing because they were legitimately skipped out and people just didn't know whether or not they smoked pot in the past 30 days, they will be counted as 0. We're assuming that they just didn't do it in the past 30 days. All right. So let's say, for example, though, because there's very little variation, I shouldn't say very little variation, there's a small proportion of people who are scoring anything above 0. Let's say we want everybody else to be coded as 1. Okay, so if we want missings to be coded as 0, and all of the values above 0 to be coded as 1, why don't we do this? We'll go, if you're a 0 here, you get to stay as 0, but all other values now will become a 1. Okay, so what I did was I'm clicking over here and making this say if you're a 0 here, you'll be a 0 over here. All other values, you'll become a 1. And so that's where that else comes in. So it's saying if you're missing for any reason, you're going to be a 0. If you're a 0, you'll stay as 0. And if any other values, you become a 1. All right. And we go ahead and hit OK and hit OK. All right. So what we want to do is after we've done this, let's rerun our frequency distribution to make sure that we did this correctly. So we can go to where it says analyze descriptive statistics, frequencies. We can put this one back. And if we just go by file order, I'm right-clicking to file order. And we go all the way down. It's going to be the last one on there. Pot 30 days no miss. Okay, it produced a histogram for a 2-level variable, which is not really meaningful at all. But here's what we have. We've got 829 people saying that they've done that, and so we can check that against the original variable to make sure that we've got the right number of people in there. So let's. Okay, so it looks correct. Why don't we go ahead and then repeat without going through and checking in heavy detail. Let's go ahead and repeat these steps for the next two variables, H1TO36 and H1TO42. So we're just repeating these steps. We can save ourselves a little bit of time because we don't have to redo the whole coding thing again. I'm sorry, I went to the wrong thing. We want to go to where it says transform. We want to go to where it says recode into different variable. And we can put this back. Don't hit reset. Just put this back, and hit H1. Find H1TO36. Okay. And this is the cocaine item. So let's call this Coke 30 days, no miss. Oops, no miss. I'm going to change that. And we don't have to mess around with old new values because these were coded the same way. We're intending to code these all the same way though. So see, it's still there, so we don't have to mess with it. We can just go ahead and hit continue, hit OK. And then we can go in and do it again for all the other drugs. We can go to, again, transform, recode into different variables. We're getting rid of this and going to H1TO42. Okay, and this one is other drugs, 30-day, no miss. And it doesn't matter if you guys name this something slightly different. It's so long as you can't put spaces in there and you can't have special characters. And go ahead and hit OK again. All right, and so what we're seeing on our output screen, this is the syntax that tells you what you just did, what you coded, and how it looks as syntax. All right, and we can go ahead and analyze and run our frequencies on our last two variables that we created. Put this back. We can put both of these over there at the same time. And let's take off the histogram. That doesn't really, at this point, it's a binary coded variable. Let's hit none, and that'll get rid of it. So there's the histogram, it's not too meaningful. All right, and go ahead and hit OK. Good. So notice now, importantly, all of our missings are gone, and we've got the number of people represented as doing those drugs at some degree. We don't know how much, but some degree in the past 30 days. Well, it is still a relatively small proportion of the sample that has done any of these drugs in the past 30 days. So what if we want to just combine all of these together and say, let's make a kind of master dummy variable that indicates if you've done any illegal drugs in the past 30 days and 0 otherwise. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, what we can do is we can go in to where it says transform and go into where it says compute. So we want to make a new variable called any drug use in past 30 days based on these previous variables. Okay, so right here where it says compute variable, we have to come up with a new variable name. We'll just call it, we'll say any 30-day drug use. Okay. So we want to set that to being equal to 1 if certain conditions are satisfied. Okay, so we are setting that equal to 1 if these following conditions are satisfied. So we want to go into where it says if right down here. Okay, and we want to click where it says include cases if satisfies condition. All right, so we want to find our variables that we just made, the no miss variables, and we want to say, okay, we want to put this over there, and we want to say if, it's saying if this is greater than 0. After that, we can type in, or this next item, the cocaine item, is greater than 0. Or just type in or the other day item, or any other drugs. We have to make sure and put a space between. It will say syntax there if you don't. So or that is greater than 0. Okay, so we're telling it we want this variable to equal 1 if any of these things is above 0. So it's a catch-all saying, okay, anything above 0. So we just brought the variable names over and put the greater sign if that is greater than 0, or that is greater than 0, or that is greater than 0. Okay, and we go ahead and hit, make sure I did that right. Hit continue and hit OK. All right, so what it's going to do, it's showing us our syntax for this any day drug use 1. So what happened there? Let's see what kind of a variable it produced for us. So to check our work, we can go up here where it says analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. We can put this back, and we can put this back, and we go down to 30-day, any 30-day drug use, and go ahead, and we're just running a frequency on that. Okay, so, well, we did it halfway. If we look down at our results, we've got 879 people who definitely did some level of illegal drug use in the past 30 days, but then we got everybody else that's missing. We don't want those people missing. We want them coded to 0. Okay, so there's a couple ways of doing this. You can go back and you can recode into different variable, or you can do it this way. There are lots of shortcuts and alternative ways of doing stuff in SPSS. I'm just showing you guys a few alternative ways of doing it. So rather than recoding that so missings equal 0, you can go in back into where it says transform compute variable. And you want to change this. Okay, so we want to say, okay, no, I want this to equal 0 if this equals 0, 30-day no miss equals 0. So I'm just changing this, changing the greater sign to an equal. We don't want this or anymore. We want and that equals 0. And that equals 0. See, so now we've got it saying, okay, you got above 0 on any of them, you get a 1. Alternatively, though, and logically, then if you have a 0 on all of them, you get a 0. All right, and so we just changed that. Did I do that right? Yes. Okay, continue. And we make sure you change that up there. So that's not equal to 1 anymore, equals to 0. Otherwise, it's going to override our variable. Hit OK. Change existing variable. Okay, yeah, because you're overriding it. Yeah. So once we've done that, now we should be able to go back in to analyze, go to descriptive stats, go to frequencies. And all we have to do, we can leave that right there. Just go ahead and hit it OK. And there we go. Beautiful. All right. So we've got now a dummy variable, a binary coded variable. that indicates all the participants who have done any illegal drugs in the past 30 days based on those items. Okay, so we've gone from 3 variables, we recoded them, reduced them down, and reduced them down further, and got them down into a one item variable that may be more economic in the way that you do analyses than using 3 different variables. All right, so that's the first and probably the most complicated example I wanted to give you of how you use recode into different variables and how you use compute variable. The next few examples are a little bit simpler, but they are useful to know nonetheless. So let's take a look now at a nominal variable. Let's take a look at the variable for marital status. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and run an analysis, a frequency table on marital status. So descriptive statistics, frequencies. And the variable name for marital status is PA10. And so I'm going to sort alphabetically. Now, all of these questions that start off PA were asked of the parents of these high school respondents. So whenever you see PA, that means it was not asked of the kid, it was asked of an adult. Usually the mom is the one who responded to these. Okay, so PA10 is what I'm looking for, and did I go over it? Maybe. Yep, there it is. Okay, PA10 is marital status as a variable, and so we want to put that over there. Now we no longer it's a nominal variable, so requesting an average, requesting a median does not make any sense. We can just go ahead and get rid of all of this stuff. For nominal variables, like marital status, like race, like what country you were born in, your favorite color, all those kind of nominal type variables, you don't need this stuff. You just want to look, usually you're just looking at the frequency table itself. Okay, and so go ahead and hit OK. And so this is the marital status variable. We forgot to do this, but you can look back in variable view to see how this was coded. This was 1 is coded single, never married, 2 is married, 3 is widowed, 4 is divorced, and 5 is separated. And you can see the frequency counts, the percent, the valid percent, the cumulative percent over there. There were just 6 people who didn't answer, so the percent and the valid percent columns are very similar. Well, let's say, for instance, for whatever reason, you might be interested in just grabbing out of this variable those people who have been divorced or separated. And so you want to make a variable that just identifies that group of people who have been divorced or separated. All right. And so what you want to do is go to where it says, where are we at? Oh, transform. What we're going to do with this is we're going to make a variable that just indicates 1 is divorced or separated and 0 otherwise. And then we're going to keep the people who are missing. So let's go to transform, recode to different variable. And you can go ahead now and hit reset. Reset this because there's other coding on there that doesn't fit our purposes anymore. And go ahead and right click, display variable name, sort out alphabetically. And go to K10. There it is. All right. So if let me just stop sharing this for a second, and let me go up to this screen, I want to show you, just make sure people are clear as to where I'm getting these numbers from. PA10. I'm looking for PA10 here. This is the marital status. I'm looking for this in variable view, and so I'm showing you how this thing was originally coded. So for all variables to be put in a quantitative Excel spreadsheet like this, or SBS spreadsheet, you have to have numerical values associated with them. So this is a nominal variable, but you have to have numbers associated with it for analyses. And so it's arbitrary, but this was how it's coded: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 is respondent refused to answer. So we want to have people 4 and 5 equal to 1. All the other values equal to 0, and then we want to keep the missing. Okay, so all right. So back to this then. So let's call this let's see, divorced or separated. Okay. So that, just a name that is going to be easy to remember what the heck that was, what we did there, old, new values. Okay, so if we recall, the separate or divorced was originally, it was coded as a 4. We want to code it as a 1. And separated was coded as a 5. We want to code that as a 1. Add. And we can do all of the values equal 0, but just so people know, we can always do it if you want to select specific values and give them different, reassign them new values. You can always go, okay, well, let's go 3 then is 0, 2 equals 0, and 1 also equals 0. Okay. So that's how you go about just reassigning them individually rather than using one of these shortcut things over here. And then we want to go. We don't want to just randomly assign people a marital status. So what we want to do, you can randomly impute values for missing cases sometimes, but for marital status, we're just gonna, because there's not that many people, we're just gonna leave them missing. So we'll say if your system or user missing, you can stay missing. And so system or user missing, system missing over here, add, and so it's missing, then sysmiss is what it should say. All right, so that'll just keep those folks missing who were missing from the get-go. And we should have now a variable. After I've run this, okay, it's showing your syntax down here. And let's go ahead then and check our work, make sure we did it right by going to Analyze, Descriptive Stats, and Frequencies. And we want to put this back, and we want to go to, you can just go to File Order, and it's always going to be the newest variable you make is going to be the last one on the list. So it's right there at the bottom, divorced or separated. You can go ahead and put that over there and just hit OK. And so, right, we've got divorced or separated. So 1 is indicating divorced or separated, 0 is not. Now, if we want to go in and indicate that 1 means you've been divorced or separated and 0 is not, then what we need to do here is we need to go back to variable view. Sometimes it is helpful to do this so you don't lose track of how you coded things. Go back into where it says variable view, and if you go down all the way down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see divorced, and you'll see that we don't have a label for it. We can make that up, but here are the values that you could say, okay, 1 means that you've been divorced or separated. 0 means that not divorced or separated.
What did you click just to get to that? Like, I looked away for a second and it went away. I couldn't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry. So all we're just on the variable view screen.
Okay. Yeah. I was opening that and I lost it.
It, we're, yeah, we're on the variable view screen, and I went over here to values, okay? And I clicked on, because this thing, it says none because we haven't assigned any yet. And so I'm just doing this over again. So what we would do is say, okay, we want 1 to indicate that the person has reported that they've been divorced or separated. And then you add that. And then you say, okay, well then 0 is just not divorced or separated. And then add that. And then you go ahead and you click OK. And so then it will add these over here. And then what happens is, let me stop sharing this screen for a second and go back to this screen. If we rerun this, analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies, divorced or separated, rerun it. And then it's got our value labels in there. So this is showing now, this is the percent not divorced or separated. This is the percent that have been divorced or separated, or here's the valid percent and for the not divorced and or divorced and separated. Okay. Okay, I was just making sure I did this right. I was just looking over my work, making sure, because I see there are 860 that were missing for systematic reasons, as opposed to people that just didn't refuse to answer the question with regard to their marital status. All right, okay, yeah, so that's how you would just make a variable that pulled out some values of a particular variable to isolate it. And so that's another term for dummy coding or binary coding. All right, so let's say we want to create a new variable out of existing variables. We want to make a classic delinquency scale, like a lot of criminologists like to do. A lot of times criminologists don't want to look at just one particular item because of the error involved and how much does that tell you. You want to look at a bunch of questions and figure an overall global assessment of just how delinquent some kids are. Okay, so in order to do that, let's take a look first at, I want to look at the items that are involved in the delinquency scale. So I'm going back here to where it says variable view, and I'm going to search for the first delinquency item is H1DS1. Okay, and so it's H1DS1 through 15, and you can see the items here, and you can just, with a quick glance, you can see what they're measuring here. These are all illegal behaviors. So here is the way that they were coded. They were all coded the same way, 0 never to 3 5 or more times. All right. So let's first create a delinquency scale by going to where it says transform and go to where it says compute variable. Go ahead and hit reset in this box because there's that if statement in there and a bunch of other things we don't need. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to create an item called delinquency. So we can just call it, and again, you could call it, donuts if you wanted to. It doesn't really matter what you call it so long as it is meaningful to you, but just call it delinquency. And we wanted to make it, because all those items are measured the same way, we can just make it the sum of all of those items. Now you can pull each one of those items over here and go this one plus this one plus this one plus this one plus this one. Or what you could do, a little bit of a quicker way, is you can go over here and just highlight all of these items that you want. These are all our delinquency items. And let you copy and go ahead and just paste them over here. All right. And then you want to scroll up. What you want to do is just a slight shortcut. Put parentheses around here, and before the first parenthesis, just type the word sum, S-U-M. And then what you want to do is you want to put commas after each one of these. Make sure you put commas, not periods. Commas, commas, commas. Except for the last one. Oops. So the last one should be after 14. And then after 15, put another close parenthesis. Okay, so what it's doing, it's saying, okay, I'm going to make a variable called delinquency equal to the sum of all these variables. You can do it like that. That's one kind of shortcut way, but there is a longhand way of just picking all the items out from the selection box on the right and putting them over and putting an addition sign in between each one of them. It'll do, either way will work to make a delinquency scale. All right, and we'll go ahead and hit OK. And so, here, let me stop sharing this for a second, go back to this screen. Right, okay, and so you should be able to see my delinquency scale is equal to the sum of that through that, and so we made it. Why don't we go ahead and analyze it to see how it looks. Okay, frequency, tables. Let's go ahead and get rid of this. Delinquency is at the bottom because mine's still sorted by file order. If yours is not at the bottom, just sort it by file order. Let's go back in and request, though, our central tendency statistics because this is a ratio measure, so it would make sense to select all these. Standard deviation, again, minimum and maximum. And we can also go ahead and request ourselves a histogram. And we can request to show a normal curve on the histogram chart just to see how far off it is from being normally distributed. All right, and we'll go ahead and hit OK and hit OK again. Okay, and so here is our delinquency stats. Here's the average delinquency, 4.0839. Here's the median, here's the mode. Here's the standard deviation, the minimum, maximum, only 42 missing cases. And so we've got, here is the full frequency distribution, and we can see how this is it's a very right skewed, positively skewed item, pretty gradual decline here. It doesn't, it's not any really sharp drop off, but a very gradual decline. Most kids are not doing any of this stuff. And then you have this gradual decline into the more extremes, the hardcores, the kids that are in and out of detention centers and in and out of school all the time. So it might be of some value to someone to say, I'm not too interested in the garden variety delinquent. What I want is the top 5%. I want the most at-risk youths to be selected out of this because I think that's where I want to focus on. I think that's really important for my research project. Okay, well, if you want to select a range of scores to indicate that someone is in that top 5%, this is where we want to use our cumulative percentage. Okay, so we want to look to see where it goes. We want our top 5%, so we want to get as close to 95% without going too much over. Okay, so if we want to be within the top 5%, here, it's right here. We're still under the top 5% here, so it's right here at a delinquency score of 14. And so we want everybody with a score of 14 or higher. That's within the top 5% of the most delinquent kids. We want to identify them. We want to separate them and code everybody else as 0. And I think I said keep the missing on that one, or maybe we'll just recode them as 0. We'll recode the missing as 0 on this. So yeah, we want to say, all right, everybody with 14 or higher, you get a 1. All other values get a 0. We'll say missing 0 too. So we want to go back into where we say transform, recode into different variable. All right, go ahead and you can hit reset on this. And we just want to go down and find our delinquency scale, put that over there. And you can call this top 5% delinquent, something like that. Oops, I misspelled it. Delinquent. Okay. Still misspelled it. Anyway, all right. What we want to do then is say everybody 14 and up, right, gets a 1. And so what you can do, you don't need to go in and code each one of those values. You can just say right here where it says range value through highest. All right. So we want to say, okay, if you're 14 or up, then you get a 1. All other values, you get to be a 0. And we'll say, okay, if your system or user missing, you can also be 0. Now we could have made this more complicated. We could have selected a range. We could say that we could have done this in deciles. We could have done it in quartiles. If you fall within this range, you'll be coded as this. If you fall within this range, you'll be coded as this. You can make a delinquency scale that's in quartiles, because some people might find that interesting to compare the top quartile and the lower quartile. But we just did it so we're just looking at the top 5%. And so the most kind of hardcore delinquent kids that you can find, at least in a large sample from high schools. All right, go ahead and hit continue and hit OK. And so we have our syntax that came out here. Let me stop sharing this for a second. Let me go back up. Okay. So let me go to analyze, and let me go to descriptive stats, and let me go back over to frequencies and put this back over there and go to top 5%. And you can get rid of all this stuff because it doesn't really serve any purpose anymore, at least this very example, because it should be a binary or dichotomously coded item where it's just 0, 1. And we hit OK. I forgot to turn off my histogram. Oh well. So anyway, there we go. Here we have. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more than 5%. I mean, you get it as close as you possibly can because we wanted to make sure it was within the 5%. So that encompassed a little more 5% because we cut off some of the people that were just below that, included them into our category. And so yeah, we've got an indicator now of some of the more delinquent kids, or the most delinquent kids in the sample, and you could use that as just a variable by itself in your analyses, or you could use it as a dependent variable or an independent variable. Okay, so that's how you would do a recode so that you're just isolating some range. And again, you could do it, and you have a series of those where you do deciles, quartiles, separate them out like that. The last thing that I think we're going to do today is this example where you would want to recode a variable so that it is following in the order of other variables that are like it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me go to this screen. Okay, so there are a series of questions in here that ask the high school respondents about the relationships with their parents. And so we're going to look at a couple of those items. The first one I want to look at is H1PF1. H1PF1. Okay, H1PF1 is a question that asks whether or not the respondent thinks that mom is warm and loving. Okay, and so this is coded so in a Likert type style, so it's an ordinal item, but it's coded so that the higher the score, the more you disagree. Okay, well, that is fine when it's by itself. But what happens though if we want to maybe try and combine this item at some future point with other items that are like it but are coded in the opposite direction? Well, we're going to have a problem. Let's take a look at a couple others that are right up here. H1WP, where are they at? 3 and 4. So, oops, wait. I'm sorry, not. Oh, okay. Let's look at this one. Yeah, I'm sorry, not 3 or 4, but 9 and 10. H1WP 9 and 10. So close to mom. Okay, so close to mom, this is how this thing is coded. 1 is not at all, up to 5 very much, that they feel close to mom. Here's another one that also taps into a parental attachment type item. How much does she care about you? And it's coded the same way. Well, these two items then are coded so that the higher the score, the more attached the respondent seems to be to the parent, whereas that first one we looked at, H1PF1, mom is warm and loving, that one is coded backwards, basically. So what we would have to do, if we would ever want to combine those items, we're going to have to reverse recode that odd guy out. So H1PF1 will need to be reverse coded. So what we want to do is we want to go into where it says transform, recode into different variables. You want to go ahead and reset this. And you want to find the variable H1PF1. And I'm going to sort alphabetically here. Okay, and we want to go ahead and send that over, and we can call this, see, mom, warm, reverse recode. Yeah, so I just called it mom, warm, reverse recode, so we know what we're doing with it. Change, and go into old new values. So we basically want to reverse code this so that the 5 is the 1 and the 1 is the 5 and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and start doing that. So we want them to be the reverse order so that the higher the score equals that you feel more so that mom is warm and loving. So if you have a 1, now you're going to have a 5. If you had a 2, now you're going to have a 4. Since 3 is right in the middle, 3 has to stay in the middle. It divides the top and the bottom score. So if you had a 3, you get to stay a 3. And then if you had a 4, you become a 2. And if you had a 5, you become a 1. And if you're missing, you can stay missing. Okay, so that's just that system or user missing, then you keep it missing. All right, so we go ahead and hit continue, and we hit OK. And now what we want to do is we want to run both of these variables, a frequency table for both these variables, to check our work to make sure that we reverse coded this thing correctly. So to do that, just go up to where it says, wait, let me stop sharing this real quick. So let me go up to where it says Analyze, and go to Descriptive Statistics, and go to Frequencies, okay, and get rid of this top 5%, And then you can click over your mom warm and loving reverse recode variable. And then let's find the original H1 PF1. I'm just sorting by alphabetically. H1 PF1. Yeah, come on. Somewhere. And send that one over there too. And we can shut this chart off. We don't need this. Okay, and we can go ahead and hit OK. All right, so how you check your work is you just, okay, so here's a reverse recode. And so in the original, strongly agree was down here at the bottom of the scale with 3,153. Yeah, now it's here at the top, 3,153. And you can just check your work all up and down the scale. This was originally coded, you know, this is 1 through 5 here, but we have the same coding scheme. We're just changing the categories, so we're flipping them around. And yeah, the neither disagree or agree is still in the middle, 326, 326. So that's a reverse recode. That will be helpful again if you want to combine items into a scale. They have to be coded all going in the same direction, and so you'll need to do that. All right, folks, that is all for today. There is a homework assignment. Let me show you what to do for that, or let me just bring up the screen. It's pretty self-explanatory, but just so people are clear, where did it go? There is a, let me open this. There is a table in there that you can just use my table. There's no need for you guys to fuss and make your own table. It is easy to make a table within Word. Don't try to do it within Excel, because that will, where did it go? Oh, here it is. So you can just, this thing comes up. People at home, if you can't see my screen, let me know. It should be able to see the Word file. People at home, I'm pointing to the table here where it says descriptive statistics.
I think it froze.
Okay, let me, thank you. Let me go back to, okay. So this is the Word file that's attached to that assignment. This is just repeating what I have posted on Moodle, but down here is the actual table that you can just remove all of my stuff and put in your information. Yeah, but I'm just saying that you need to have two dependent variables, a number of independent variables, and you want to list either the mean or the percent. So if you're talking about a nominal variable, you're going to be listing the percent usually. If it's a variable that makes sense to report a mean. You do not need to report the median or the mode, but you do need to report the standard deviation for variables that are not coded just 0, 1. And likewise, you want to show the range for these variables. That's the minimum and maximum values. And so you just need to fill in your own table. Now, for people that are taking this as a graduate course, I'm going to ask you to have a table like this in your paper. And so you can just, if you want to just treat this as your table 1, that's fine. It might morph a little bit before the end of the semester, but this is essentially what you have to do. And for the people who are doing this just for the assignment, just make sure that you're reading through these instructions. When I say 2 dependent variables must include 1 discrete coded 0, 1, and 1 continuous variable. By discrete, it just means that it's not a variable that has a big range to it. Discrete variable could be like marital status, but I'm just asking you to have 1 variable that's just coded 0, 1, like you are not in this certain category. That's why it's called discrete. And then continuous variables where they're coded, a Likert item is a continuous variable, and any variables that have lots of levels to them that are not nominal variables, they're ordinal, interval, or ratio. you want to have one of those in there, and then at least 5 independent variables. So you want to have one nominal, one ordinal, one ratio, or interval. And then 2 of the independent variables must come from the parent survey, where it says PA in front of the variable. So all those items, that the variable names, they start off PA. Those all come from the parent survey, and so you can just look through those. You can also look at the website and look at the original code book, because that demarcates specifically what questions were asked of parents, what were asked of kids, what was asked of kids, and you can see it there as well. But it's all those items that say PA in front of them, or the parent items. All right, folks. So that's class. If there are questions that anybody has about what they should be doing for this assignment, I'll stick around here. You can talk to me. But that is all. If you are ready to go, you are free to go. So take care. I will see you all then on Tuesday.
I may just not get it right away, but let me see if I could get this. Hold on. Okay, so I don't know, I don't get, what are we supposed to use? Like, I see like the whole entire variable like thing we were going for, like the H and all that. Which one are we supposed to use for the homework assignment?
Which variables do you use? Any ones you want. Any ones that are of interest to you that meet the criteria that I'm pointing out above. So it's really so long as it's meeting this criteria. There's no particular variables that you need to pick out, other than having 2 that you think are dependent. That is, the idea is that they are an effect of the independent variables. And so you could, I'm just pointing out here, like family relationships may have an effect on whether or not kids use drugs or their delinquency. So you have a lot of leeway as to what you want to put in there, but so long as you have, you've got one that's coded 0, 1, one that's continuous, and that you have one variable for each one of the categories of variables for your independent variables. That's all I'm looking for at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is also new to me, that all these like numbers and this, I don't know, I got so lost. I was so confused.
Well, yeah, it's helpful to go back and listen to the video, watch the video. You can always fast forward and slow it down wherever it makes sense. But yeah, just go ahead and do that. But
I was following along on my computer, so every time I was like trying to find something, you were already like on the next step, and I was like, oh no, because I just downloaded it. I just got this computer because I didn't have it on my Mac. So I was figure everything out. I was so lost, but I'll watch it again, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just let me know if you have any questions. We can do a Zoom meeting or something like that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.